Hello, welcome to I'm Angry, Annoyed, Amused podcast. You're on with Mike. So next to me is Matt.
What's up?
Over there's Johnny.
Yo.
Across the table is the other Mike.
Hello.
I'm going to start this one off because I was thinking about this today. We were having a conversation off air about the Ukraine, Russia, like not the conflict itself, but about what's going on right now. But it led me to actually kind of the core of my feelings about all foreign policy out of the U.S. I've been abroad. I've met a bunch, a good bit of European people, right? And they've all been very nice. I really have had generally nice experiences. But I think, and maybe if you guys disagree, tell me. We're told that there's this sentiment around the world that Americans are rude and fat and loud, right? Mm-hmm. And then they take our money to defend themselves. And I think, I'm going to curse here, I think they should all go fuck themselves. Wow. I think every country, if you're going to say America's uneducated and fat and rude, we don't like their people, they come here to, let's say France, right? You're going to tell me the average French person loves having Americans into their country? Mm-hmm. No, but they're going to take our money so that they can give each other, healthcare or whatever and not pay for defense. I mean, we have
but the
bases.
average French person doesn't get the money, right? This is the government gets the money and does it.
But they get to have free healthcare,
So
and then
they-
they even
so
get to
that's
go.
how-
They get
so-
to go
so
to
the
say we
individuals
laugh at
still get-
America for not having free healthcare.
They still get to hate us.
Right, right. I'm saying it's not on the personal level. I'm saying as a country,
Yeah.
I'm so tired of that. I'm so tired of hearing, or even right now with Trump, right? What do we hear all the time? The world's laughing at us.
Laughing stocks.
The world's laughing at us. Trump's.
More clowns.
All right. Then defend yourself.
Defend
Then
yourself.
pay for yourself.
But then if you say that, then you get
Maybe
the,
that.
then
Yeah.
you get the argument. Oh no, we got to protect the world because otherwise China's going to take over. Or this one's
We
gonna
can
take
defend
over.
ourselves against China. If you can't, I don't know, be nice.
Be on your own. Be nicer.
Say something nice to us.
Because
Maybe
we got all-
Stop calling us fatties.
We're the laughing stock.
Because we got all
We're
that
fat and
beautiful
rude.
water around us. That's why.
That's right.
Fine, we got a better land than you.
And wait till we take over Canada.
But isn't that but
the
what?
51st state?
No,
Didn't we take
seriously
it
though.
over already?
Seriously, I hate hearing we're the laughing stock of the world. Trump made you guys the laughing stock of the world. Canadians are laughing at you. Maybe you are the 51st state.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just tired of that. How many bases?
I agree.
How many bases do we have
but
in Europe?
This is what this country lost. Man.
No.
We don't have pride in ourselves anymore. And there's a lot of people that think that a lot of people that agree with the outside world.
I guess,
what they
but
say,
then,
which is terrible.
How can you really say no? I think America's this awful place, fat, rude, loud people,
Well, look,
uneducated,
the UK
and then you're yeah, but their money's good.
The
The
UK
green,
Prime
the money's
Minister-
green.
The UK
you know what?
Prime Minister
Yeah.
came out the other day with his big tough announcement. We don't care. Maybe not everybody's going to want to support, but we don't care. We'll put boots on the ground. Speaking about Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
and the end of his statement, he said, "But we're not going to be able to win without the U.S." And I'm like, "What the hell kind of tough guy
Well,
you see what
they're all
that?
saying that.
They're all doing that right now.
Even the
Germany.
even the EU, which is another superpower compared
Together,
that-
all
that-
together.
Together.
Well, of course,
May-
but I'm
and
just
maybe.
saying, what I'm
And the
saying is,
EU's
they're-
buying oil from Russia and giving money to Ukraine, supporting both sides of the
anyway,
war.
Not
So
a
that's
discussion about the EU.
genius.
I'm saying even the EU, which is another superpower to your point, because
Mm-hmm.
you're saying everybody should be able to defend themselves. They're even telling Zelensky you do need the U.S. on your
Yeah.
side here.
Yeah, everybody needs
Yeah.
us. Everybody needs us, but they talk.
So
about
stop
us like
talking
we're the-
shit.
We're the shithole. We're the shithole of
Right.
the world.
I
right?
cannot
Oh, they-
stand
Well,
that
you
argument.
know.
They don't have free
I
healthcare.
cannot
They
stand
don't
that
have
argument.
This, they don't have that. Go to hell.
I was in Japan talking to a kid from the UK. And we were arguing about some stuff. I don't know how it came up, right? And he's like, "Well, don't you guys at least I didn't have to go to school in America, I could have gotten shot." And I was like, "I would tell you about your knife statistics if I gave a crap about your shitty little country." But I don't. But you know about our thing. I don't know a show that gets shown in England. You watch ours.
Right.
So stop.
10 out of 10 cats.
Stop talking about America then. I think it's a completely fair request. I think it's good to give aid, right? I think it's good to be nice. I think you want to say, "Oh, well, the real argument with Russia is that Ukraine's a sovereign nation and we have to protect sovereign nations," which obviously isn't true. That's not a thing that happens. We don't defend every African country that gets taken over by some warlord. We just don't do it because there's no money there.
Right.
So don't act like it's all good. You know what I mean? It's all humanitarian. It's all for democracy. Shut up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's so stupid. But then also to say we're the laughing stock of the world, but then turn around and go you're right. That EU all of a sudden because Trump's I'll pull out of NATO. Germany goes. One of the German generals says we're gonna have to up military spending significantly. We're gonna have to cut healthcare. So they're like, why would we do that?
Everybody's
like,
living. Everybody's
He's like,
living
we don't
off
have
us.
a military. He's
Everybody's
like, we have
living off us.
180,000 soldiers. We couldn't feel like they couldn't even. Hilarious. They don't even have enough. Germany doesn't have enough soldiers for what they promised NATO, and what they promised NATO is still like, a percentage point of what the U.S. promised NATO.
Right.
And they're not even there. They're like, yeah, we're underperforming because nobody asked us. I saw this today just because I was reading an article about it.
That's insane.
Just one base that we have in Germany, which I believe we have multiple, one U.S. military base. I want to say it was a couple thousand, in this families and stuff. But they say that overall, like the total, because, between the houses, buying food and all that, it's like 1.4 billion in local economy. If I was Trump, that's the first thing I'd do. I would just say, we're still in NATO, but you can defend. We don't need a base in Germany.
Right. You defend yourself.
You can defend yourself. You're a big boy country apparently, right?
Right.
You can tell us that tariffs are wrong. You're gonna look right. You're gonna look us in the face and say you can't tariff us. That's wrong. Like we're your friends. But then you're like, no, but you're basically gonna stay here and give us 1.4 billion in spending. No, those houses now are vacant. I don't find more people.
Yeah.
That's gone. That's what
The
I get rid of.
The whole world lives off of us. And
I know, I'm tired of it.
And they want
but then they're gonna complain about it.
Didn't we have
the dredges of society? But without us, this whole thing.
Didn't we
would fall
have this
apart.
conversation
I
in
can't
one
stand it.
other podcast where we talked about how powerful our military was, but we compared a couple others to as good as ours or better. I think you said.
I don't remember that.
There are some militaries that have
Israeli
more
military
people
is
than
very
us.
strong.
What is the number?
Yeah, but like they would be. They're just
Israeli.
too small.
Israeli.
They're just too small.
They're just
but
too
they-
small.
But they're extremely powerful. Yeah.
What makes them more powerful?
Well,
The only-
every citizen, every
Every
male
citizen.
Right, but how
has
many
to be
people are in their
Every
military?
citizen.
No, they would
They're
get
military.
squashed like a bug.
So what makes them powerful if we're going to squash them?
that they're
because if they're not going against the United
they have
States.
planes.
Oh,
like there
other
are,
than us.
there are
Right.
entire
Okay.
swaths of the world that don't have an air force.
Right.
So a war, if it was a real war with that country, Ukraine actually is a good example. All their planes are our planes.
Yeah.
Right.
If we decided to go to war with Ukraine prior, like not joining in on Russia's side, I don't want to get into all that. If before that we were just like, you know what, we're gonna start taking over because we can. We're gonna start taking over countries.
Right.
We could just send the Air Force in, and they could just bomb it into submission. Like there's no defense.
Right.
They don't have any defense.
That's crazy.
Same with navies. Most countries don't have navies. We could just park our boats. It's like we could surround, like UK wants to talk a lot. We could just surround their country with boats and starve out their entire country.
What is how many people in our military roughly?
I don't know. It's like a lot. It's a good bit. There's more. China and India have larger standing armies.
Right.
China, I don't think
Who knows
anybody
what
really
they
knows.
have.
Yeah, right. Like part of the thing, is like
knows what they have.
whatever. As far as I understand it, India is like a little bit back technologically. Like as far as like
Don't have
weapon
atom
systems,
bombs.
and they don't
That's-
have bombs. They
that's
don't
crazy.
have.
They have
They don't
planes.
have. I mean, they might have an aircraft carrier, but they don't have like fleets,
Right.
that kind of thing. But they have more manpower because there's tons of people.
Yeah.
Same with China. Right now,
Well, I
the
don't
general
know if
belief.
China-
no, I'm
if
saying
China's
the
technologically
general
advanced.
belief is that they have more manpower, but their military is a little bit less advanced. But we don't now.
don't know that.
The gap's been closing. And I
Right.
think the argument's like we don't really like if they might have some stuff that we
Yeah,
don't know
China
about.
definitely.
They
Right,
estimate
right, no,
close
of
to
course.
1 million in our armed forces.
How many?
1 million.
We have 1 million.
And that's probably standing, right? That's not like reserves. It's probably at least 2, I'd
Wow.
say, altogether.
And keep
Or
in
like
mind,
1.5 maybe.
at-
And that's great.
at this
And you
point
said
with
Germany
technology,
only-
you could-
With
you could-
technology, I
you
mean,
could,
it's called a
one-
force multiplier.
One
Right.
person can arm.
Right.
Right.
countries.
Right.
And you said Germany only has 180.
179,000.
That's
I think.
crazy considering at one point they were like the force of the world.
Yeah.
Well, that was when they had.
And that's when
couple other
but that's
countries.
also
No, I know,
that's when
but-
everybody was like a military member. Like that's when
Right.
a country does that.
That's
like
wild.
his point about Israel. Like Israel would have no hope fighting like us, but
Right.
they would level the Middle.
almost
If they really
anywhere
wanted
else.
to, barring nukes, they would level the Middle East. I mean, nobody could hold a hand to them.
Wow.
Barring nukes, because
Right.
like Iran and somebody else in the Middle East has nukes. But whatever,
Right,
like
I
nukes
got-
are the ultimate.
Yeah,
you know?
that's all you need.
Yeah, of course. Which is funny, actually, because well, not funny. I mean, but
Not for
no.
they're pretty destructive. Probably not.
No, not like nukes aren't funny, but no, one of the things
You're gonna say it like 6 times. He's gonna try to make it funny.
It's not
with all this like stuff going on with Ukraine, right? I was reading about like, the thing because apparently the biggest thing is like Russia or we aren't honoring our agreement, the something disarmament agreement from like the
Yeah.
90s, right? This whole thing. And then I was like looking into it. I was like, okay, like, what is this about? Like, who made the agreement, right? Russia
There was
also
no agreement,
Russia
right?
also signed it. Well, it wasn't a. This is the thing. It was like apparently it was a political agreement, but there was no actual. It didn't say like if Russia does this or if a country does this, we will meet them with force at the border. It was just sort of like a we'll protect you.
Yeah.
So it was a general. So it's not binding, as far as like international things are considered binding.
Right.
Which
It's like a good faith agreement.
it's a good faith agreement, but also if you really think about it, every single international agreement is a good faith agreement because like a country like the U.S. obviously I don't think it'd be good to just like stop, honoring them all, but we could.
Right.
We could just say we're not going to do that, and nobody can tell us you gotta.
Right. Right.
We could tell other countries you gotta, which is sort of what's happening with NATO, which is the whole argument, right? Like Germany, France, England, they've all had the good fortune to be in NATO with America, so we're covering all your defense spending. And then Trump goes, we're not doing that anymore. We'll be in it, but you got to pull your own weight. And they're like, ooh, we kind of can't. We can't tell them we're not going to do that.
Right.
Because if they pull out, we're done. That was our military. Was really the U.S. military, and we'd kind of help out. That's really the idea. I mean, if really things went ballistic, it's like the U.S. is going to be the Army Rangers would be the first people in any war zone in the world if World War III happened. It wouldn't be, I don't know, whoever England has. It just wouldn't. Right. It would be U.S. Army Rangers. So that aside, but so the agreement, right? That was we're going to defend Russia. It wasn't I guess maybe the EU and America, whatever, right? They signed this thing because Ukraine was giving its nukes up. This is what I read. And that's why they said, we'll give our nukes up, but we want this protection guarantee.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would Ukraine have the third most nukes in the world? What was going on there?
Right.
You know what it was? When the USSR fell, it owned all of Ukraine, and they just had nukes there.
That's where they all were.
So that's where they were.
Yeah, and not only that, right? So already I'm like, okay, so it's not really. It was never really the Ukrainians' nukes.
Right.
Not only that, but they kept the codes and all of the nuclear, like the things that it takes to run it in Moscow, which kept being Russia. So they couldn't even use the nukes. They just were. It was a nuke sitting in Ukraine.
It's just there,
and it was the third largest armament in the world. So they gave them back to Russia, and Russia was one of the countries that signed off on it.
Wow.
But I would argue that is a ridiculous agreement that anybody ever made.
Right.
It was like nice at the time because it was like we're gonna respect, and this is like comes back to the sovereignty of Ukraine. We're gonna respect the sovereignty. But if I was the U.S., you know what? I would have been like, we're taking those nukes.
Yeah.
And you're not getting an agreement. They're not yours. You can't even use them. They couldn't have used them. The third largest nuclear arsenal in the world.
Unless they figure it out. But
there's no figuring it out. It's
They're not
code. They'd have to break
Well, they'd have to
nuclear.
break it in that,
They'd have to break nuclear codes, which you probably know is impossible, barring what's it called?
And
Almost.
Barring the new quantum computing. Barring that,
Almost impossible, right?
nobody's breaking nuclear code.
But
I mean,
also-
unless it's a bad
but
code,
also in
I feel
Moscow.
like Russia
But
did it
also
right.
in Moscow.
They had the codes still in Moscow.
Right.
No, they Russia kept them. Russia became Russia. It stopped
Right.
being the USSR,
Right.
and a bunch of other smaller satellite places became Ukraine. Became Ukraine.
Right.
Right. I mean, there's like culture. There's like a debate. It wasn't always yada yada, but there were physically nukes there because it's the out. They put nukes on the closer area to the world that they were fighting,
Right.
which is where Ukraine is.
Right.
Right, and then they're like, well, the USSR's gone, but it's on our land. Russia can't just come and forcibly take them.
Right.
And they were, at the time, they were in no position to do so.
Right.
And the U.S. and probably the EU was like, well, let's be nice about it and like call it, say they're disarming themselves, but they're not. Like I read this whole thing and I was like, this is really what we're acting like.
That's funny.
This is the thing. They'd never had nukes. They just said like, hey guys, can you help us out? Because we're a small little country. I'm like, what? And then now this is like the thing we have to, an endless hundreds of billions of dollars.
Endless $300 billion
That's
war.
wild.
Yeah, like I don't think
But
Ukrainians.
everybody says they can't win anyway.
They never could have. What are they fighting for? Stop the war. Let these people stop dying. Did Russia win some territories back?
I'm crazy.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't know.
I think they did.
They did.
No, they did. I meant like.
They
I
did.
meant. Is that it? Is that really
the-
what
but
we're
the
supposed to fight over?
If you're gonna wait for Putin to say, okay,
I've done enough.
I'm done. You guys, we're finished.
But
We're
the
gonna shut down.
territories-
It's not gonna happen.
You might as well kill all the
have to
Ukrainians
figure out-
yourselves. Like,
you have to figure out a better way.
Aren't
to
the
do it.
territories they won back technically? I mean, they're Ukraine, but aren't the people living there Like
Yes.
feel like they're
Yes,
more Russian.
culturally Russian.
Well, there's
Russian.
some of that.
there's
Right.
debate. That's
There's
a
debate
It's a
about
debate.
it.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that's hard to find.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Crimea, right? When they took that over in 2014 to no
There was no
to really no big
there
deal.
was no
I mean,
fight
like
there.
Obama was like, "Hey, we're going to sanction you," but
There was a red line in the sand.
that was the red line already, which is apparently what happened again, which now we have to defend, not when there was that. But
Right.
that's besides the point. But when Crimea happened, so Russia, and I was looking this up again like recently, so I'm pretty sure about this. Fact check, whatever. Russia went in with not uniformed. Like they didn't go in as a Russian military, but they sent Russian military in, just like took over a couple key infrastructure things, and then said, "This is Russia now." And then they held a shortened election or whatever you would call it. There's a word for it. It's not an election. We're not, but saying like, do you want to be Crimea? You want to be Ukraine or Russia? And this is the thing. Like apparently the UN said, well, this was fake. Like they lied. They just said this.
Right.
But apparently Crimea voted to be Russia. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the reason why apparently that there was really no pushback, even though the UN was like, they didn't let us audit it. Like there's a whole thing that the UN audits all these elections around the world.
Right.
Right. And it's like, okay, maybe, who knows? By all means, I'm sure maybe they would have lied. Like that, Russia definitely would have lied about a thing like that. But it was still a line in the sand thing.
Right.
But that brings me to like another issue I have with this whole Ukraine nonsense currently is that like if I remember the last, 27 years of my life correctly, it's been pretty clear in my lifetime that the proper way to look at U.S. imperialism is with a negative eye. And is to say you guys should not be going around the world imparting your will on random countries.
Right.
You shouldn't have done it in the Middle East. You shouldn't have done it in Africa. You should not have been done it and keep doing it in Latin America. But you should do it in Ukraine. Explain that to me. Like, suddenly we found the good cause war. Right? Like, I mean, there's been one other one ever in history. Right? Everybody else says every war is written by the victors. It was wrong of every war, right? Except for World War II because of the Holocaust and suddenly Ukraine. We finally found the other time where it's just like, no, this is a just war.
Right.
Like that's
Yeah, I
not.
don't understand. I don't understand people's stance on this whole thing. Like why? I almost feel like people want to keep Ukraine in war, and I don't understand why at any cost. You know what I mean? Like you can't. They can't see a way to negotiate. Like they can't see giving in anything to Putin, and everybody knows what Putin is, right? So there's no fighting that point. But Putin's not going to back out, unless he gets something out of it. And what do? You just allow him to keep fighting the country, keep allowing them to kill people in Ukraine, and just let it go on, and we just keep dumping money into it. To what end is that? Like what sense does that make? That makes absolutely no sense to me. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I just, it baffles me to even think.
It's crazy that it's been going on this long.
Yeah.
Especially for such a tiny little country up against Russia.
Yeah, well, that's because we're dumping money and all kinds of different things in there. And they're fighting for their country. God bless them.
Yeah, no problem with that.
They can fight to defend their own.
And they're fighting for their country. But how long are you going to let this go on for? They're being wiped out.
But that's the part. That's where it's like it's brave, but it's
not going to be any.
Don't you want to stop dying?
There's going to be no more Ukrainians left.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to be Ukraine with Russians living in it.
Right. So like now the argument becomes
war of attrition.
And it's
there's
like
going to be nobody left.
It is a different argument when the invasion starts, and it's like, yeah, it's a war, right? And it's like, yeah, we want to, Ukraine, they want to fight it, and us having to be the sheriffs of the world will help them. We don't want to get in direct conflict with Russia. Okay, fine. But it's been 3 years. Has there been that much movement? I mean, yeah, right. There's been some territories back and forth, but it's not like Russia went all the way and then Ukraine went all the way. There's been a front, and people have just been dying.
That's it.
And that's it. Yeah. More people are dying, and like now, if Putin's open to peace, with concessions, right? And then the argument's
what else are you going to do?
And then from one of the arguments that I've heard personally is that if, let's say, they're like, okay, you know what, Russia, you get to keep the territories you've conquered. Ukraine, but Ukraine says the rest of Ukraine is still Ukraine. That's it. Not even with force guarantees or whatever they call them, protection. I don't know. Right? The argument's that, well, Putin's just going to regroup and then do it again. And I would say, well, okay, then fight the war then. Then fight World War III. Then say, okay, Putin, we're giving you a chance right now.
Do it again and we blow you up.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
is that a stupid thing? It's like,
that's not
more
unreasonable.
Ukrainians
What are you
should
gonna
die
do?
right now. Like, yeah, if the war,
Let them keep dying.
But isn't it the same thing as him then winning the war in Ukraine and then invading Poland? Like,
Right.
we're not gonna preemptively attack him. It seems. I mean, right?
We could have,
Like,
we haven't yet.
no, we could. I'm saying if we were gonna do that, do that now.
We would have done it already.
Do that
That's
now.
what I'm saying. The whole thing.
We're gonna
is
have to
like-
wait for him to attack a NATO member anyway.
None of it makes sense.
So stop the war now. If he does do that, then you fight World War III then.
Right.
I just don't get like we gotta, and especially if it's like, if you look at it from a strategic point, saying, well, Russia is an enemy to us, and right now they thought the war was gonna go easier. It's not, and the more money we pour in, they lose more soldiers and resources. And I'm like, yeah, but that's at the cost of Ukrainian lives.
Right.
And maybe you guys can live with that. I don't think that to me that doesn't make sense. Personally, I'm not the decision maker. I just don't think, and maybe this is one thing I could be wrong, Russia is only a threat to us insofar as they have nukes. And insofar as they have nukes, it doesn't matter anything else about their resources.
Right.
It doesn't matter how many soldiers they have.
Right.
They can be down to 20 soldiers. Like, this war could go on for 50 more years. Every single Ukrainian could be dead, and there can only be 1,000 Russian soldiers left on the entire line of Russia. As long as the nukes are still there, they have just as much ability to kill us as we have to kill them.
Right.
Right.
It doesn't change anything. There's no resource burning of nukes
Right.
unless they use the nuke. So what is whittling down their army going to do? What, are we going to someday march on Moscow, and Putin's going to go, in that last moment, he's going to go, I could have nuked you guys, but I'd rather you guys destroy Russia than Russia destroy the world. That's the Putin I'm supposed like. He's supposed to be this maniacal, crazy guy. You don't think he'll do that? Like, I don't know. I just think enough people have died.
I know.
Maybe make some concessions and call it a day. How do you end
Exactly.
wars?
What do you do?
How else do you end wars?
There has to be a concession. That's what I say, right? There has to be. No, you're giving in to him. He's going to do it again. Yeah, exactly right. You have to then just say if he does it again,
Then you
gotta
fight.
go after him.
Right. Then go to World War III.
or go after him now. Don't wait another 10 years.
Yeah,
Then go
or start
all
the
in.
war.
Go
Start
all
the
in.
war.
Say, look, Putin, we had
Then
enough.
start World War
We had
III.
enough. You're not giving it up. We're coming in. That's it. Take them out and just go, because why wait another 10 years to figure this out?
Right.
Another $50 billion
Right.
of money, lives wasted for no reason.
Yeah, especially because the appeasement thing is really a bad, just doesn't make sense to me. Because so you're telling me that Ukraine, this sort of like ragtag group of soldiers with American weapons and EU weapons or whatever, they can not successfully win the war, but they're pretty much they're fighting. It's just like sort of a stalemate on territories.
Yep.
And
That's
that's the
wild.
Russia that if you give them anything, they'll take over the EU.
Right.
Right.
They'll beat the US. They can't really beat Ukraine with our weapons,
Right.
but us with our weapons they would kill.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Explain that to me.
Yeah, I know. None of it makes sense.
It doesn't make sense. It just none of it makes sense except for the fact. The only thing that makes sense is that the true driving force of the left right now is that Trump is evil.
Yep.
And if he says something, you oppose it. And that's
it.
just the
Gotta go against
simplest.
it. Yep.
That's just the simplest thing. So like, if he wants peace, he doesn't really want peace. He actually wants more war later. They're like, no, he's saying he wants peace now because he knows that if he gives Putin that land, Putin will have every chance to start World War III. And it's like, how does that make any sense?
People are just blinded by the hatred of this guy, and they just can't think straight.
What does Poland feel about all this?
Well, Poland, if Russia took over Ukraine, then
Poland would be next.
Then they're on the
No,
board.
right.
Poland would be next. So
Right.
they have the most reason to say they. But I would understand Poland going, we know how you guys are all treating this, but to us it is on our doorstep.
Right.
So we're gonna go full on. I'm okay with that,
Right.
as long as it doesn't affect NATO because they are a NATO member.
It would.
Right.
Well, I mean, if I don't think it works the same if they chose to enter a conflict.
We wouldn't have to back.
I don't think so. I think it's different. I'm not positive, but that would seem odd to me. That
Yeah, 'cause
if
then
we
you're-
choose to get in a war, you also have to
have
get in
to
a
get in
war.
Right.
I mean, did NATO jump
if
into
they-
Iraq
if they
and
went in-
Afghanistan?
if
I
they
don't
went
think
in to
so.
help- if they went in to help Ukraine, and then Russia started fighting in Poland with Poland, then would we have?
I
to
think
get
we
in?
would.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happened.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
I think that
what
would.
happen.
I just
mean,
mean
there's
like
no
Poland
doubt.
does have like the idea of appeasement will start more, right?
I just-
if
I-
Poland's
I-
like we don't want to be, if Poland's saying we don't want to be the theater of World War III, we'd rather it be Ukraine. So we'd rather it start now. Like, we don't want to wait for Ukraine to get conquered, and then we get to be the land that it's fought over.
Right.
That's reasonable.
Right.
But, like, it'll definitely not be the U.S.
Right.
Like, certainly. So for us to shell out all the money, to me, is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially,
Like I said,
we've talked
I
about this
think
generally,
you have
when
to-
America's not, like, killing it. If everybody in America, 6-figure jobs, and, like, nobody had to worry, everybody could get health care, all the things that everybody complains about all the time, then yeah, sure. But that's not the case. So why are we shelling out billions of dollars for an endless war?
Yeah.
That's what doesn't make sense to me.
Makes no sense.
Matt, you learn anything?
Yeah.
What did you learn?
Or what would you like to say?
I learned. I actually didn't learn anything because I already knew like all of those like agreements between nations don't mean anything. So that's what I've been. What do you call that? Like double down. Like I
That's
like
the thing.
right. I'm doubling down on that belief that
That none of it
sanctions
means
and everything
anything?
they mean nothing.
They don't.
They're
Well,
gonna do-
sanctions, monetary stuff is real.
right.
You know?
Until it isn't. Until you're in debt to a country for trillions of dollars and never pay it back. Because what are you going to do if you don't pay it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
What
true.
happens if you
Why'd
don't pay it back?
I guess I think of a sanction. I guess you're right. I don't really know what a sanction
It means nothing.
I always thought of a sanction as the same thing as a tariff, which is just an arbitrary amount of money taxed on top of something. Like sanctioning Russia is like, we're not going to sell you this thing.
No.
They're losing out on that market.
Right.
Or we're not going to
gonna
import.
buy this thing from you.
We're not right.
So
they're losing out on a
They
market.
lose money, right? They
Right,
lose
but
money.
Yeah,
on
so
it.
like
the thing
that-
is, you have to hope that they care less about the sanction than they do about World War III, right? Like that's like the whole
Right.
Well,
Well,
listen,
with
when-
nukes, that
when-
is sort of the ultimate
when their
issue.
funds depleted, they can't do as much. It's like anything else.
That's
They
a big
they
modern.
Can't, they can't build an army. They can't build armaments.
Yeah,
They
anytime
can't-
money. That is sort of the idea of
that's a problem.
sanctions and like warfare by
Right.
sanctions.
Right. That's you keep the money away from them. And,
Yeah. I just think, I think, and I mentioned this, I think, right before we started, but I've been thinking about this a lot, and this is definitely going to sound not, the best to people.
Get ready.
I think we have to redefine the idea of a sovereign nation because it seems to me that we really only have like 4 or 5.
superpowers. You're saying
Superpower, right, but sovereign nation right now just means you govern yourself.
I'm saying you're saying superpowers should be the new definition.
No, I think the only sovereign nations that exist are the superpowers. Everybody else has to ask for handouts, and you should be treated as such. That's it. If a country, a small little country, they're on top of their thing. They're like, my people are good. I don't need any money from any of you guys. Call them sovereign. Fine. You know what I'm saying? But like, it seems like everybody in the world is asking for money from the top 5. Like, it's not even just us, not even U.S. Like people taking advantage of the U.S. As far as I understand, there's a lot of countries.
Brazil,
China.
Russia.
No, China. There's a lot of countries that, the relationship we might have with, like, let's say, right now, Ukraine, just like the fact that they're like, just give us money. You don't get anything for it. You're just helping us out.
Right.
There's like China owns like 60% of Africa. It's not like because they're really good people. Not to say that Chinese people are bad people. I just mean the government.
Right.
I don't think it's really that they're like, we just really think it's time that, Africa gets some resources. Like, they're being exploitative. Like, they're not sovereign. Like, but those countries are, they're in the pocket by virtue of the relationship
Right.
to China. So what's sovereignty mean if it's like, yeah, we govern ourselves, but really like we sort of have a secret partner.
Right.
We sort of can't do what we actually do without this country
Right.
Silent
that is a
partner.
truly sovereign country. That, yeah, they govern themselves, but they have the ability to enact what they want to do, right? Which most countries don't, I think.
I agree.
I just think because I'm like tired of hearing like we're defending the democracy of Ukraine. I was like, what? We have to do that everywhere? Draw a line. Like, there's no lines. That's it. I understand NATO. If you make an actual alliance, yeah, that's
That's
the
a different
idea
thing.
of an alliance.
Yeah.
But like Ukraine's not in that, right? And again, there's this one like sort of shoddy agreement that you can say, well, that was an agreement, and you have to honor that.
but you can
But then,
understand-
but if that's it, then don't say it's about democracy. Say it's about the agreement.
Right.
Don't say it's both. Because if it's just democracy, then we should be marching into half of the countries in the world
No, it's
to
not about
re-democratize them. No,
It's about what those countries have. I mean,
oh no,
that's
true,
what it is
right?
at the
That's the
end
truth
day.
of it.
And I could see why you would want to defend them. My thing is you can't do this endlessly, and you can't do it to the point like in this case where they're being wiped out. You have to find a solution to this, or go all in. That's the only 2 choices.
That's what it seems like. to me.
Why waste the time?
Yeah,
Just do it.
Just negotiate what you can negotiate and get out, or just go
Or just
all
go
in
on.
and take somebody out, because what are you going to do? 10 years from now, still be talking about,
So waste.
Right.
They're losing, they get.
If we give Putin the first 75% of Ukraine that he took over, he'll definitely go to Poland in
Right,
like another
right.
10 years and $2 more trillion.
Right. So
I don't know.
Just let
Let people
get
stop
what you can
dying.
get.
I don't know. Right? Stop
And-
sending
and
like
we
Ukrainians
all
into a
know
meat
that We
shredder.
all know that Russia invaded the country. Like, I'm so tired of being reminded
Yeah,
that
I
Russia.
know.
Yes, we know that. The point is, you need to now find a solution. You need to now coordinate some kind of peace here, because otherwise it's just going to be a boondoggle forever. And who pays for it? We pay for
We
it.
do.
And they pay with their lives, right? And ultimately,
500,000.
you're going to wind up getting drawn in. One way or another, you're going to wind up getting drawn into that fight.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah.
It can't go on for that many years, and you're not going to get drawn in somehow. Mm-hmm. You're half involved. You're putting equipment over there. You're doing things like that. Somehow you're going to get involved. Something's going to happen, and you're going to be involved in it.
Yeah. It is funny the sort of like it's not a great parallel, but I was just thinking of it. But like, and I understand like the difference is the aggressor side, right? But pretty much the argument right now from the Ukraine side or pro-Ukraine side, is they're going to fight to the end. The only thing that'll stop it is if Russia, the aggressor, decides, you know what, we're done, we're going to pull back. I was like, but what's the argument in Israel-Palestine? And I'm calling Israel the aggressor in this scenario. Aren't, like, we have to lean on Israel to stop? Aren't they? Isn't that the... They're the aggressor.
Right.
The war ends when the aggressor decides the war's over.
Right.
Right, but hasn't the argument been that, no, that's wrong? Like, so they're like, oh, well, don't tell Ukraine, just stop Russia. But it's like, but don't you want the war to end where it is? Right? Isn't the thing bad? Right? Like, my point being really is that, like, Israel, they started bombing Palestine. And initially, most people were okay with it.
Right.
Because they're like, yeah, they attacked you. And then it's like, okay, I don't know. I'd relax.
a little
Like,
overkill now.
I'd stop. And then at this point, I think definitely most of the U.S., probably most of the world that anybody knows about, it's like, let's just stop doing that. Right? Like, Israel, like, chill out.
Right.
But they're not saying give it all back. They're saying just stop it. Like, you can get whatever, like, some things are.
Right.
Stop the war, though. Stop killing Palestinians.
Right.
That's what really it feels like the argument is in Russia. It's like, look, okay, it was bad. You guys have been at war. But, like, let's stop it here so people stop dying.
Right.
You can't give all these things back. You know what I mean? Like, it's not how wars go.
Right.
Generally. You don't just say, like, okay, killed enough back to your sides. Like, it's not a boxing match. Like, things, get won or gained, and then you stop the war, though.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems beneficial to me, but
It's kind of wild.
I don't know. It's crazy. I just think everything is upside down still.
It's going to be upside down for a while.
yeah,
No right setup.
One day.
we'll see. I do wonder how long it'll take for things to, like, it has to happen eventually.
Yeah,
Like, even if-
World War
you-
III.
Even if only for a certain- well, I guess.
When the aliens come
Operation Bluebeam.
and the world has to go together.
You guys know Operation Bluebeam,
No,
right?
we don't. Of course we don't.
You've never
Why
heard of
would
that
we
one?
know that?
All right, this is the last thing.
You probably
this is,
told us about
this is a
it.
good thing to end on because it's light. Operation Bluebeam. This is real. You can look it up. Excuse me. Operation Bluebeam is a fake. And this is like a government. This is what I mean by look it up. It's a real like strategy, I guess you could call it. I don't know. It's the idea that the government will fake an alien land, like an alien invasion, but we'll kill people. Like we'll do the whole rigmarole in order to start like a new world, like a whole, universal.
You did tell us about this once before.
Yeah, but it's called Operation Bluebeam. But it's nuts because it's like, I feel like that makes more sense than even like I would actually prefer a real alien invasion because at least like there's aliens. If it's a fake one,
That's messed
man,
up.
how terrible would that be?
Messed up.
Could you imagine? I mean, that's Independence Day,
That'd be
right?
sad.
Yeah.
Independence Day ends up being
Yeah.
fake, right?
No.
That wasn't actually aliens. I
Wait.
thought in that movie.
No, Independence Day
No.
wasn't fake.
They were really
There were.
aliens?
I know there is a
I thought
movie
there
you're
was-
talking about. I don't
There's
know.
some movie where it's pretty much that idea where like it's an
Called
alien
Operation
invasion. People are like,
Bluebeam.
oh my god, maybe. But then it turns out it's like the U.S. government. They're like, what? Like, that's so much worse. I hope it's. My point being, I hope when it happens, I hope it's real
real
aliens.
aliens.
Got to be so depressing if it's just
I don't
like
think aliens want to take this planet over.
Bigfoots.
they rise up, them and the lizard
no,
people.
No, they are aliens. That's
The
one of the
Bigfoots?
theories.
Oh, I thought you meant like they were gonna take over.
No,
The
aliens are looking
Bigfoot
like
aliens.
they're gonna ruin their own world.
Chewbacca's basically.
I follow.
Chewbacca's.
I follow.
Rawr.
Nah,
Anyway.
it'll be the lizard people. They'll finally take their masks off in Congress and
That's true. Anyway, enough of that. Thanks for listening, everybody. And as always,
Stay angry, annoyed, and amused.